You're watching Bread and Roses, a weekly political social magazine broadcast in English and Persian via New Channel TV. Hello everyone, I'm Maryam Namazie.
And I'm Fariborz Pooya. In this week's program, we'll be discussing nuclear agreement between Iran and the Great Satan. We'll interview Hamid, the leader of the Worker Communist Party of Iran.
In shocking news of the week, it is the threats against Shahin Najafi and his concerts. In Europe, in Insane Fatwa of the week, we've got a fatwa from a Malaysian imam who says that women must have sex with their husbands on camels.
We'll come to that in a minute. The good news is publication of a new book by Mona Eltahawy, Headscarves and Hymens, Why Middle East Needs a Sexual Revolution.
Yes, we do. Stay with us. The Lausanne Agreement, reached due to economic pressure, negates the political identity of the Islamic regime, which has been based on opposing the Great Satan, the US. This agreement will lead to a further weakening of the regime and will raise the expectations of people in Iran. The Lausanne Agreement has caused a lot of people to celebrate. It's funny because my father even emailed me to say, congratulations, we've reached a nuclear deal. And I think part of it has to do with the fact that economic sanctions have been so hard on people in Iran that this has just been a cause of celebration. Though if much is going to change, I'm not so sure about that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the fact that people see this as a retreat by the Islamic regime for many, many years, for 35 years, the whole institution and structure and architecture of the Islamic regime is based on opposing the Great Satan and bringing different values. Suddenly, they are being forced to go and sign an agreement with the Great Satan and the America and the 5+1. That's a retreat for the Islamic regime. That's why I think people underneath that psychologically very happy for this.
Yeah, and I mean, it also goes back to the fact that economic sanctions are really bad for people. I mean, this is one of the reasons why we oppose economic sanctions, because it does put a lot of pressure on people. And this agreement, gives people a sigh of relief, thinking that, well, at least, we'll have a little less pressure on us. The reality, though, is not necessarily the case, because we're seeing the regime trying to get some ground again by stepping up execution, stepping up its persecution of people there.
And I agree, and this is part of the weakness, because when you retreat under pressure, the weakest sort of link, because they can't oppose the Great Satan anymore, they're turning back and they're attacking the people of Iran, and we've seen the rise of execution in Iran in the last 2 or 3 months, and huge rise in executions.
Yeah, I mean, one of the other things is, of course, is this rise in expectations of people too, and I think this is one of the things that the regime has always had a problem with. It's people in Iran expect a lot more than an Islamic regime can provide, and any sort of retreat by the regime is an advancement of people's expectations. They want more, they demand more, and it is this constant challenge that the regime faces.
And I think that's a very valid point. Now let's go and watch the interview which we did earlier with Hamid Taqvaee on this very issue.
Stay with us.
Hamid Taqvaee, welcome back to Bread and Roses.
Thank you.
We wanted to talk to you about the nuclear agreement between the Islamic regime of Iran and 5+1 group. In your view, is Lausanne agreement a turning point?
In a sense, it is a turning point, but not, of course, formally and officially. Formally, it's a negotiation for nuclear project of Islamic Republic, but it goes beyond that. Actually, I mean, the political meaning of this is a prospect of Islamic Republic and U.S. and other Western governments get closer to each other. So it means that in this sense, it can be a turning point, because it's a negation of whatever Islamic Republic defined itself as a force against Great Satan, against the U.S., against the Western culture, against the Western values, as an Islamic regime, as an Islamic identity. Now everything is under question, because when you have that negotiation, and when you have very happily announced that we had an agreement, and as Rouhani, right after the Lausanne agreement, just announced that it is just the first step, and the next would be getting closer, and in other area, getting closer to the West and having new agreements with the West. So in this sense, it is something completely new in the politics of Iran and Islamic Republic of Iran.
So does that mean that we are going to see a lot less of Islamic terrorism in the region? Because we know that Iran is very much involved in supporting Hamas, supporting Assad regime in Syria, it's in Afghanistan and many other countries in the Gulf as well.
Yeah, that's what at least Rouhani claims, that we want to have this direction. He claims that we're going to have a new policy, a new strategy. But actually, in the real world, it's not possible. Because Islamic Republic is a regime that from the beginning defines itself. Its political identity as a force against the West, as an Islamic regime with Islamic values and being against Israel, being against USA, being against their policies in the region and all of that. So it's not that easy for any dictatorship, I think, that just even a little bit change your definition of what you define yourself as and still be in power. So I know that everybody knows that they had to have that agreement because of the economical pressure, that because of the sanctions, they had to change something. And so desperately they go toward that goal that we want to have a better relation with the West. But that's in contradiction with the very existence of Islamic Republic. And that's why I think the result that we're going to see is a more political instability in Iran, a political crisis in Iran, and nothing as they think that we're going to have a maybe a more established Islamic Republic closer to the West. I think the opposite is going to happen.
And in the region as well, you think there'll be more?
Already in the region, Islamic Republic is very weak, actually. Much weaker even comparing with 1 year ago. Because of Daesh, because of what's happening in Yemen now, because of that coalition with Saudi Arabia against Islamic Republic. So already they're in a very weak position. And any propaganda about any declaration that we want to get closer to USA, meaning still weaker and weaker position in the region.
Right. So what are implications for people in Iran?
What people see in what's happening now is the weakness of regime, and that's why people are happy about that. People think that when Islamic Republic says that, even when, as I said, even when they claim that we're going to have a better relation with the West, for people it means that so we can claim to have a life like people of the West. So our society should get closer to what we have in the West. That's what people expect from that prospect. And of course, it's totally against, again, what Islamic Republic is in Iran. So in this negotiation and in this agreement, people see a much open, better society, a much more modern society, better human rights, better conditions of life. That's what they expect. And that's why people go forward and have more aggressively challenging the whole system.
I agree. I think why do we see suddenly we'll see increase in number of executions in Iran?
It's obvious because, as I said, when they get closer to US, they know what it means for people. It means higher expectations. People are going to have more expectation from their everyday life. So, in order to control the society as a counterbalance of their agreement with the West, they have to put more pressure on people, and executions is part of that, a very important part of controlling society by the Islamic Republic. All the execution always played that role in Iran.
So the increase in, so the negotiations, in a way, while people are very happy about, at the same time, is it going to lessen the Islamic sort of terrorism in Iran?
That's what
Iranian
people
society?
hope. That's what people expect, but it doesn't mean that necessarily it's going to happen. Especially now, at the beginning, as I said, Islamic Republic tries to control society, tries to show people that nothing changed in relation between me and you. I'm still the same dictator, and you are still the same people you have to obey. So when I get closer to the US, it means a better condition for you necessary. But people think that, okay, Islamic Republic is weak. They had to do that. They didn't want to get closer to US. They have to. They wanted to be Islamic Republic as a backbone of Islamic movement against US. So they see the weakness of the regime and why they are happy, and they think they can get advantage of that situation and go to the street, be more active, more aggressive, demanding their rights in Iran. That's why people are happy about that.
So as a final question, very briefly, does that bring us to issue of human rights and support for this very movement that people aspire to in Iran? So is there a role for everybody else parallel to nuclear negotiations, people in the West or in different countries? What do you expect?
What we expect from before going to the people of the West, government of the West, I think Western governments gonna have put less and less pressure as far as the human rights is concerned, because now they have a political, or they're get closer to each other and having a more normal relations, and that's why we're gonna witness less pressure from the government of the West. But people of the West, of course, is a different story. And it depends on us, on opposition, and leftists and progressive parties and forces in Iran to let people know that if anything is going to be normalized between Islamic Republic and Iran, nothing between Islamic Republic and people of Iran is going to change, and even it might get worse. So in this sense, I think we have a huge duty, and it is up to us to let people of the West know that the situation in Iran is getting worse and not better.
Thank you very much, Hamid Taqvaee, for joining us again on Bread and Roses.
Thank you.
I hope you enjoyed that wonderful interview with Hamid Taqvaee. I mean, he raises some really important issues. One of them, of course, is this contradiction that we were talking about earlier as well. It does create a huge contradiction for the regime because its entire political identity, you know, Sharia law is one thing, the veil is another, fighting the great Satan is another one of its main ideological pillars.
And also, you know, this on the surface, this is, as Hamid says, this is sort of on nuclear issue, but really, truly, it's balance of forces in the Middle East. Look at the terrorism of the Islamic regime in Yemen, you'll have that in Iraq, you'll have that in Syria, you have that in Lebanon and Palestine, and all those issues. This agreement effectively is the beginning of putting pressure on the Islamic regime to retreat from those positions. By weakening those sort of fronts effectively, the regime is going to be in a really, really difficult situation. Its whole existence comes under question, and people will be questioning that.
And of course, one of the things that's not important for, of course, the regime, but also the European governments, the US, is the question of human rights. You know?
Absolutely, and that's the internal terrorism. The Islamic regime is made of two things. One is external expansionist terrorism to maintain itself, and then suppression and terrorism within the Iranian society. That, to fight that terrorism, clearly we know, we've experienced this many times before, that the European countries suddenly, they're not interested in human rights anymore. And we've seen they've been very quiet in the last 2 or 3 months when it comes to execution of great number of people in Iran. You know, day after day, we've had 30, 40 people public hanging in Iran. Not a word from the European and United States on the issue of human rights. That's the challenge for Iranian people, for progressive forces and secularists, progressive around the world, to say, look, this agreement cannot continue without actually ignoring human rights, and that's our responsibility, our task.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the thing that's clear is that this, any sort of release of any pressure on people in Iran is a positive thing. However, is it really going to translate into that? And the only way it will translate into that is by people's protests. And that's what we've seen throughout the history of the Islamic Republic of Iran and throughout history of people's struggle everywhere. Shocking news of the week is on Shahin Najafi, who is the wonderful Iranian singer-songwriter who had a death fatwa against him earlier because of a song he had sung. And now, after singing another song, Mamad Nobari, which is beautiful, he's now got other threats, and this is from a specific website that has given a bounty of $155,000 plus several gold bars. There's no money to feed people in Iran, but they're giving gold bars and money to kill people. And it's basically a threat, as Shahin Najafi says. It's a public threat, because what they're saying is he's remained defiant. He's still having his concerts. Now they're saying that they're going to put bombs in concerts to intimidate the public.
That's openly said on a website linked to the Islamic regime, and nothing happens. They don't react at all. And although this is a shocking sort of announcement by the Abu Abdullah sort of website, you say they're not
Abu Shahida, one of these
correct.
Abu rubbish
Right.
ones. Abu.
And the fact that they don't say anything. They say they're not political.
Yeah.
But they say that
they're not political, but they just kill anyone who criticizes Islam.
Nobody sort of blink an eye in the Islamic regime, the president. They're back in this.
What's interesting is their website was on a European server. The server shut them down, saying that what they've done, they're inciting murder. So they were off for a few days, and where's their new server? Iran.
In Iran, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, of course.
But Shahin Najafi is defiant. He said we're going to continue. A lot of people actually bought the tickets. They want to go and to defeat these guys.
Yeah.
They're not going to be successful at all. And I think, but this public announcement of bombing music sort of venues is shocking, and that needs to be condemned internationally. The guys who are actually having a nuclear agreement, they should raise that issue. That shouldn't actually. They can't go around and announce that they're going to bomb places in European countries.
Yeah. I mean, Shahin Najafi's concert starts on the 16th of May. He's going to have a tour in various European countries. I've been to his concert in London. It is beautiful. So not only will you be going and defying the Islamists, which is always a good thing, but you will be listening to some fantastic protest music. He is really one of our icons in Iran. We love him, and I think what we need to do is support him 100% and, give the finger to the Islamists. Insane Fatwa of the week, it's from Malaysia, and it's a mullah who says that men must be able to have sex with their wives, even if it's on a camel.
Where does a camel come into? I mean, first of all, there's no camel in Malaysia. Is there a camel?
They'll have to go find one somewhere.
And then the poor camel. There's a party to this public sort of thing. Are they going to drag a camel into a bedroom, or are you going to do it in public? I don't know, but this is crazy.
I mean, as Reza Moradi says, we've really got to sit down and dissect these fatwas, because they're just, there's so much information here. As you said, one is, are there going to be camel sanctuaries like there are donkey sanctuaries now?
The rights of
to
the camels
save camels from, people having sex on their backs.
What's going on here?
And, the other thing is, the fact that, as you say, so much sex is prohibited in Islam, more prohibited than it's allowed. But here's one that is allowed, and it's, a man can have sex with his wife whenever he wants, including on a camel.
And neither the camel or the wife have no rights in saying no, because you can't say no.
No.
I mean, that's the
Definitely
shocking,
not.
you know, although it's
Yeah,
funny in a way,
yeah.
but actually the disgusting nature of this is, you know, that is rape.
Yeah, definitely. Well, one of the things he's also said is that there's no such thing as marital rape.
Because that's a European idea.
It's a
isn't
European
it?
idea, yeah, you know. As if women elsewhere have, you know, don't know what rape is. It's only European women who know what rape is. But seriously, I mean, as we were talking about before in the break, well, not seriously, is the fact that what happens to people who live in countries that don't have camels?
You've got to go and find one.
Yeah, and
make one, bring it drag it into a bedroom.
No, Reza was talking about, you know, the sex shop that's opened up in Saudi Arabia. Most probably they have some little symbolic camels
We
there.
should have brought a little camel here.
And again, insane fatwa, as you say. I mean, there's nothing that you can say that can explain this garbage, seriously, that they come up with day in and day out. And it just shows how messed up the Islamist brain is. It needs a lot of help, a lot.
Now, the good news for this week is publication of a new book by Mona Eltahawy, Hymen and Headscarves and Hymens, Why Middle East Needs a Sexual Revolution.
And yes, we do.
And also, you know, all religions are obsessed with my vagina, not mine, Mona Eltahawy's.
Women's vaginas.
Women's vagina. And that's the thing. That's a brilliant sort of book. Her work is, I mean, has been great in Egypt, and, you know, it's beautiful to see that actually the question of sexual revolution in the Middle East, which is going on in Iran, in many countries in the Middle East, and that's taking place. It's been going on, and we need to strengthen that.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things she does say is the fact that it's not enough to have revolutions like we saw during the Arab Spring, but that it has to go hand in hand with a sexual and social revolution. Otherwise, it's meaningless. And we do see this huge need for a real sexual revolution, partly, you know, with all these insane fatwas that we talk about, their obsession with women's vagina, controlling it, restricting it, you know, and not allowing women to have autonomy, whether it's bodily autonomy or autonomy in thought or action. And she has a lot of really interesting stories because she went and lived in Saudi Arabia when she was 15, and she said it was as if the lights were turned off in her head at that age, and how, you know, it was as if her mother had become disabled, you know, because she was no longer had any agency to do anything anymore. And I think these sort of experiences are really important, but also the call to action that she brings with it. It's not just, you know, about how bad it is for women, but this call to action that we need this sexual revolution.
Yeah, absolutely. And Mona Eltahawy is one of the voices, precious voices that it needs to be heard everywhere.
Definitely.
On the ground, we've seen the rise of women's movement in Iran for many, many years. We've seen that actually the progressive movement in Iran is led by women, and Iranian future revolution will be a women's revolution. It must be a women's revolution, and I think Middle East as well. And Mona is one of those voices that is very precious and must be heard.
Yeah, I think we do see women very much at the forefront in battling dictatorships, and also when it comes to Islamism, you know, women are the first victims, and we've always said this, they're also very much at the front lines of resistance. And so I think we should all go and get Mona's book, read it, and hopefully we can try and get her on our program, Mona. We'd like to contact you and see if we can ever interview you for a program. We'd love to have you. Anyway, I think we've reached the end of our program. We wanted to remind you all that we have a Patreon site where we are asking for people to support us on a weekly basis per program. Thank you to all those lovely, lovely people who've been supporting us. We love you very much. We've printed up some posters for you, which we'll be posting you in the next few weeks. And to remind you to tell other people about it and to support us if you can.
Yeah, we do need every support for every program, even a dollar or a pound would be a great help. We need your financial as well as moral support that we regularly receive. So on that note, that brings us to the end of the program. From Maryam Namazie and myself, goodbye till next week.
Hi, I'm Maryam Namazie.
And I'm Fariborz Pooya.
We're hosting a program called Bread and Roses. It's a weekly program that's broadcast in Persian and English in the Middle East and North Africa, primarily Iran as well. And it's also shown on YouTube internationally.
And we've been doing this since last May. We're coming up to our year's anniversary, and we've had quite a lot of fun making these videos.
We discuss taboo-breaking, free-thinking ideas. The Islamic regime of Iran has called us immoral and corrupt.
And that's why you need to support us. We are the alternative voice in Middle East and North Africa.
Of corruption and immorality. So do support us. Here's a short video from Patreon that explains how you can help us with even just $1 a week. That's nothing. Support us.
Patreon lets fans become patrons of their favorite artists and content creators. It's different than Kickstarter because it's not about one big project that requires lots of funding. It's more for bloggers or YouTubers or webcomics, anyone who creates on a regular basis. Here's how it works. When you become a patron, you're agreeing to give an artist a tip of an amount you set every time they release a piece of content, whether it's a new song, a video, or a recipe. You can set a monthly maximum to make sure that you're always within your budget. Choose an amount, enter your payment information, and you're done. Becoming a patron allows you to view and post in the artist's stream, and in exchange for your support, artists offer additional patron packages, which might include monthly Google Hangouts, music production tutorials, pre-sale concert tickets, or anything they can offer as a way to say thanks. Patreon, empowering a new generation of content creators.